Hello. Thank you again for joining me for an episode 12 of The Doc is In. It's another one, the last in the Embracing My Brokenness series, and it's discussing ADHD. Um, as an adult, have realized over time that I do battle with ADHD. Um, ADHD is an abbreviation. It's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And it sometimes people will use it alongside ADD, kind of interchangeably, attention deficit disorder. Um, however, one of the main things that will distinguish it is that it impacts your focus, your impulse control, sometimes your emotional responses. And oftentimes in childhood, it's misdiagnosed. I've met so many kids when people say, "Oh, my child has ADHD," and it's like, no, they have childhood. That's what they have. They have a lot of they have a lot of energy because they're kids. It's what they do. Um, but that's for a different story. But um, ADHD, the biggest thing is it's not all about the fact that the kid is hyper. Like um, kids with ADHD are a little bit different. They're usually kind of off in their own world. They're kind of like you can be talking to them and they seem a little spacey. It's that idea of, oh wow, we're talking and we're holding this conversation 1 second, and then a butterfly goes by, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder where that's going. And I do that a lot. ADHD is not laziness. And it's something that most kids can outgrow or learn to live with. For me, I've learned to live with it, and I learned how to use it to my advantage in the sense of where can I use my need to multitask most efficiently. So, working in really high energy environments, it's pretty awesome for me because I'm constantly changing my attention and I'm changing my focus. And because I'm doing that, I am, I'm good. Most clients that I have will tell you that I tend to keep something in my hands. I'm very tactile. So when I'm sitting in session with a client, it's not hard at all to keep my attention directly focused on them and stay in tune with what they're saying. But I also know that my body wants to get up. My body wants to tap my foot. My body wants to do all these things. So by keeping something in my hand, I keep myself occupied. So usually that might be my keys, or something like a coin, or as I mentioned in a previous video, a stone. Having something in my hand definitely is helpful. Um, so, how do you recognize or spot ADHD? It could be a lot of things. So, when you have a kid that may have difficulty following directions, and I say a kid, but I should also say adults because there are adults with ADHD. Things like following directions, staying on task, poor time management, focusing on like, hey, this is the important thing. Let's focus here. Getting started. Some people are just like, hey, I have too many things on my mind to get started. Doing or saying things before really thinking them through. For a lot of people with like impulsive shopping issues, yeah, could be ADHD. Um, when your focus shifts rapidly between things, um, like having a good working memory, like, hey, I started this thing and I started this thing and I started this thing, remembering to go back and finish all of those things. So, ADHD actually has three main types. The first one is predominantly inattentive type ADHD. So that's when it's like the procrastination, the forgetfulness, like I can't get started, that kind of thing. The other is predominantly hyperactive impulsive type. So I can't pay attention, I can't control my behavior. Um, I have to be moving, I have to be doing something. And the other is a combined type. So that's a little bit of both. And I'll try and make sure I have a graphic or something here so that you can kind of see them for yourself. Um, for me, I think the issue with ADHD, especially if you have children with it, one of the big things is to help them by just making sure that you're doing things to keep things consistent. So consistent behavior modification, consistent rewards, consistent punishments, those types of things help because they create structure. And that's the biggest thing. So if I walk into your house and it's a million colors, that's way too active. It's too much going on. I'll be the first to tell you that I really don't like Las Vegas for that reason. When I go, if I've been to Las Vegas twice now in my whole life. The first time was with one of my very close friends. He's like a big brother, and we went, but everything was so structured. I was there for only like a day, so I was literally kind of just following along. So we went here to here to here to here to here, and it was cool. I went back to Vegas fairly recently by myself, and I was there for like 3 days, and I felt so overstimulated. Like there's just too much going on. It's too many lights, too many sounds, too much visual, too much everything. And it's like it's so overstimulating. My favorite vacations are ones that lead me to more woodsy places like Vancouver, where yeah, it's a big city, but at the same time, it has this air of slow down about it that I really appreciate. So yeah, being mindful of your surroundings when you're dealing with your kids who may have ADHD is a huge thing. Asking for classroom accommodations if that's what they need. So maybe like they need to get up and take a walk at some point, and most schools can help with that. Giving extra time for tests because maybe it's hard for them to get started just to begin with. Um, or maybe it's they learn differently. Maybe they need to learn in a more active way that can really help them. Um, so that's just like little things I want to point out. Honest to goodness, like those things are things to note. When it comes down to other like skills, when you're talking about things that can be affected, of course, their concentration, their organization, for their physical control, they can't sit down. Like when teachers, I remember, growing up, there was really no such thing as ADHD. You were just a hyper kid, and you were disciplined for it. Now, a lot of people are jumping to that, saying that their kid has ADHD or assuming that they do, and there are other, I think, nefarious reasons behind that. They want to get them on checks or they want to do whatever. But I will say definitely keep an eye out because it's not always ADHD. It can be, but it's not always. I think when it is, you kind of know it is. You don't really mistake the symptoms. They're pretty glaring and they're pretty obvious. You may notice things like your child has difficulty making friends. It may be things like um, they're easily distracted, always poor concentration. They blurt things out that really, in theory, comes out of nowhere. Um, they seem very, they seem very um, unable to read emotions in the room. So, for example, everyone's sitting down watching a TV show and they come up and ask, "Can I watch something?" And it's completely different. And, it's one thing when they do this as like a kid, like a toddler, like 3, 4 years old. It's very different when they're 10, 11, 12, 13, and they're doing this. That's kind of the feeling. Um, but for me, I've noticed ADHD in my life because I'll notice like sometimes when I'm with friends or in groups, I'll be talking and it comes to me like, wow, I just spoke really, really fast. One of my frat brothers that I'll mention in another video, he's like my little brother and I love him so much. He will always gently redirect me. He'll be like, bro, I'm gonna let you finish, but this is what I was saying. And I thank God for people like him because he's going to point out what's going on so that I can be mindful of it. And I often I'll catch myself if I find myself interrupting somebody. I'll usually catch myself and be like, "Sorry, didn't mean to like cut you off." Sometimes I won't even notice. That's just it's kind of like your brain is running so quickly. You feel like I gotta get this thought out. I gotta get this thought out because you won't remember it. Um, but it's little things like that that I've noticed for me. And I try not to let it really bother me at all. I just try and work within it. You as you get older, as I said, you kind of grow out of it. I'm not a super fan of stimulant based, especially ADHD meds. Things like Adderall, I feel are overprescribed and overused. And oftentimes, I've learned from working in substance use, Adderall seems to lead into things like heroin. So I will, if someone wants to get on the ADHD med, I will say please tell your doctor, can I have a stimulant-free ADHD med? They are making better meds all the time, and so there are things I believe Strattera, Concerta, and again, this is not a definitive medical thing for you. Pharmacology is not my bailiwick, but I do know that there are non-stimulant based medications out there for ADHD that are effective and that work. So um, definitely, if you feel like your child needs that, go that route versus the stimulant based route. I hope this has been helpful to somebody. Maybe you've seen some of your own patterns in this. I hope, as always, my one wish would be that everybody would live in good mental health. Um, have a wonderful day or evening. Love yourself, love somebody else. We'll all be better for it.